everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got an epic show ahead, but just remember, if any of you have experiences you'd like to share, I'd love to hear from you. You can either email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com or head over to paranormalportal.net and scroll down and find the button that says Interview Me, and that'll allow you to look at a calendar of possible times and dates and find a date that works for you. Love to hear your stories, so definitely get in touch with me. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal podcast. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and it's another glorious day here in the portal. Hope you all had a great one and wonderful holiday season. I know mine was really nice, and special thank you to all of those of you out there who are giving me so much love and support. It's an incredible journey, and I can't thank you guys enough. And we've got an exceptional show today. I am interviewing Edson Freeman, who is joining me today, and he's an author, and his book is available out there on Amazon and on Barnes & Noble and other locations. It's called Strange Light, Personal Accounts of UFOs, NDEs, and Other Enduring Mysteries. And you can learn more about it by going to his website, which is strangelightbook.com. And we're going to talk to Edson about his journey, about his stories, and about the weird and wonderful world that we love so much. So buckle up, everybody. We're going in. Hey, Edson. Hey, Edson. Thanks for coming on the show. My tongue.
Thanks for having me.
My tongue just did some kung fu there at the end, and I don't know what happened. But
yeah, you gotta get that. The tongue has to take the holiday break too.
Yeah, I got to get it back in shape. But welcome to the show, and I know you're a listener as well, so first and foremost, thanks, and I appreciate you reaching out to be on the show, because that's amazing, and it'll be an exciting discussion. But I think the best place to start, if you don't mind, is where did this start for you?
That is a good question, and it's a little bit of a winding road. Okay. I used to be a skeptic, probably if you go back maybe 3-4 years ago. I wasn't like a hardcore skeptic, but I was just sort of like, maybe someday we'll figure out what's going on. But, it all looks like silly TV shows to me, but at some point, I talked to some people who had experiences and they were credible and compelling. And I was like, yeah, maybe there's something to this. And then, you start hearing these whistleblowers and others coming forward to testify in Congress about, these unidentified anomalous phenomena, I guess they call it now. And little by little, things were just chipping away. And, I read a couple books by people who had crazy experiences, like lifelong experiences. And there was one book called Earth, A Love Story, written by Robin Lasseter. I reached out to her because her book was really it was a really good book, and it just sort of captivated me through the whole thing. It was very raw and honest, and she kind of had this attitude of like, I don't care if you believe me, I'm just going to tell you my experience. This is what happened. And I reached out to her and I said, hey, I really appreciated your honesty and your vulnerability in putting this out there, and I wish that more people were comfortable doing this. And she kind of challenged me to make a book. After we had a little back and forth, she was like, I said something along the lines of, I wish that there was a book like this of other people's stories. And she said, well, you should go do that. And if you need any help, let me know. And so,
Oh, really cool. Wow.
yeah,
So she was very
yeah. So
supportive of that vision.
yeah. And she kind of mentored me through the book writing process, giving me tips on finding an editor and finding how to get the layout done and all the little nuances of getting a book out.
So you kind of
that's
came
the
into this. You kind of came into it a little bit cold from kind of from the outside in. How did doing this project change your view of the world around you?
I'm definitely more open-minded. There's a lot going on that we're not able to fully grasp. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's all interconnected, but it feels like every rabbit hole you go down, you end up in an adjacent rabbit hole, and then that one connects to the next rabbit hole, and it all seems to somehow have something in common. I haven't really collapsed that down into something specific, but there's definitely a there.
There's definitely a there. You're absolutely right. And that was one of the great revelations for me as well, because I'd been a fan of this stuff, since being young, but I really didn't have any experiences until I think the first experience I can remember is in my teen years, but it had to do with a cryptid. And then I've had plenty of haunting situations, and I've seen a UFO and a lot of different things. But as I've done this shows, and as I've talked to witnesses and experiencers, the crazy part to me is that there is a lot of bleed through. There's a lot of similarities between a haunting and alien encounters and abduction situations. And there's a lot of similarities between cryptozoological encounters and ghosts and UFOs. And there does seem to be a real odd bleed through on those, right?
Yeah. I definitely, I like to say that they're not the same, but they rhyme. There's something about the strange qualities that they have, that they all have, that seem to have, there's like a thread running through all of them. And I'm really curious if we'll ever figure out what that's about. But I'm just going to keep asking the questions and talking to people and trying to see if I can get any sort of handle on it.
Yeah, it's an incredible question, and it's an admirable journey, I guess, because I hope you solve it for all of us, believe me.
I don't think I'm the one. Like, this has been a question for most of humanity's history, so
yeah,
I don't think I'm going to get there any faster than anybody else, but
maybe not.
It's such it keeps you asking more questions, the more you look into it, the more questions you end up with. So
isn't that the truth? And that's the really shocking part for me. It was like, well, I figure I'd have this nailed by, doing it a few years. I'd get all the answers I needed, but all you end up with is a lot more questions. So what was your first interview for the book? Do you remember who you interviewed and what the topic story was?
Yeah. So the first one, I believe, was the man who in the book is named Finn. I do sometimes give people pseudonyms,
sure,
because they want their privacy depending on their circumstance, or we change details. But let me start by saying the way I do this is I'll interview somebody, and then I'll write up their story as a storyteller, and then I'll send it back to them and say, how did I do? Did I leave anything out? Do you want me to change anything? Anonymize? And then that sort of repeats through the process of, as we get toward the end of the book, they get a final polished, edited version. But I don't want to put something out without somebody's full buy-in. So Anyway, back to Finn's story. He had just gotten married, and he and his wife decided to do a little low-key honeymoon in Marfa, Texas. They had a music festival or something there, and while they were there, if people have heard of the Marfa lights, it's a phenomenon where these strange lights appear in the sky, and he decided to go out there and check it out. Okay. And they were sitting out there, and there was like an older gentleman sitting there who had lived there for years and years, and seemed a little strange to them, but they saw these incredible lights and just a whole light show going on, and it was so moving for him, and he was just blown away. And his wife was kind of bored with it. She was like, can we go back? I don't want to stay out here all night.
Sure.
So anyway, I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but basically they go back to the hotel. He can't sleep because he's so like amped up about whatever this was, and he wants more of it, and he wants to connect with it. And so he ends up going back out at like 1 a.m. to the desert in the middle of the night, falls asleep on the desert floor, wakes up cold, goes back to his hotel room, and he had sort of begged for something more. Like he wanted this connection. And then he woke up screaming a few hours later when there were 3 shadow beings in his room.
Oh my.
And woke his wife up, and she's like, what in the hell was going? Like the whole night was just sort of this crazy series of events. And yeah, it was a really cool story.
So in the body of this work, what kind of topics? I know the title is pretty expressive and expansive, but what topics generally are you covering? Is it the title?
So my goal was to cover as many different, I don't even know. I've never settled on a word like unexplainable or strange or high strangeness, like any experiences that don't really fit with the conventional mindset. So I tried to go as wide as I could with the types of experiences as well as the geography. So I tried to get people from other countries and other cultures, but I've got anything from, precognitive dreams, near-death experiences, people who have had contact after the death of a loved one from that loved one, hauntings, there's all sorts of different little variations on this theme, alien encounters, UFO sightings, a little bit of cryptid in there. I think I am working on a second book, and I've got a little more of a beat on some cryptid stories coming for the next book. So,
that's fantastic. Yeah, I know
the cryptid ones were a little hard because it's sort of like, I saw this thing in the woods and I didn't know what it was, and then the story ends.
Yeah,
but there are some people that have those bigger stories. So there
are, but you're right. I mean, the average Bigfoot's encounter lasts 3 seconds. And, even though those 3 seconds probably feel really long for 3 seconds, they're really just 3 seconds. And it is people being confronted by something that at least visually is obviously not normal. And how do you process that? What do you do with it afterwards? And then, it can spiderweb into a million different things. But, yeah, it's probably hard to get real specific with 3 seconds of material. Yeah.
Yeah. And the way the book is structured, each chapter is one person's story. So
that's perfect.
If I'm going to tell someone's story, there's got to be enough to make it a whole story, right? Like if you just saw some weird lights in the sky, that's a cool story to tell at a dinner party or something, but it doesn't make a chapter in a book, Sure. I do have one chapter at the end where there's some shorter ones where it was like just a one-off experience that people had a hard time explaining. But for the most part, these are people that have had either really big or a whole series of experiences.
Sure. I do wonder, because I've noticed this throughout the years of doing the show, is that a lot of times, and I'm curious how many people you ran into that had this kind of events happen for them, but a lot of times there's one catalyzing event where these people are confronted with something that seemed impossible, challenged against their paradigm, and then after that they continue to have other encounters. It's like something changed, maybe physiologically, maybe genetically, or whatever, or their awareness opened up for whatever reason, and they're seeing a hell of a lot more than ever before. Like that one event was a Genesis event, and now it seems like it's everywhere. Did you encounter that in the course of doing your interviews?
Yeah, definitely. The one that comes to mind is, I think it's chapter 4, a guy named Sean. He had a near-death experience. He was doing some home remodeling work or something, and he was prying a paint can open, the lid on a paint can with his pocket knife, and the knife slipped and basically slit his wrist, and he was bleeding out. And you know,
Oof.
called the paramedics, and so he died, and he had this whole classic near-death experience. It had some cool elements to it, but then after that event, he started having more UFO experiences. Wow. And where it got really interesting was when his grandfather apparently had a lot of UFO experiences in his lifetime and kept a journal of them.
Oh man.
And he asked his mom, his grandfather had passed, so he asked his mom if he could see the journal, and she dug it up and called him, and he came over, and as soon as he got to the door, she was like, "Here's the journal. You're in it."
Oh.
So.
Oh wow. Is that
yeah?
That's a pretty huge reveal, I suppose, for someone to absorb.
Yeah. It was basically just his grandfather saying that he thought that Sean was sort of next in line to in the family to be experiencing these things, but
very self-fulfilling.
Yeah, it was
prophecy.
a really good story. Yeah.
That does tend to come up a lot, you know, is that in the abduction scenarios, is that there's something about a family line, and it's, I don't know if that helps to explain the phenomena. Like, are they researching some genetic transitions or what? But it does seem peculiar that it's an ongoing sampling of, you know, some genetic line.
Right. Yeah. There's you keep teeing me up here. There's another chapter called Frankie, where it's somebody who had lifelong interactions with gray aliens, and they kind of dive into that about you know, monitoring genetic lines and stuff. So
isn't that crazy? Wow.
Yeah.
Now, do you know? I'm always curious because I've heard some people suggest that this is definitely seems to be an anomaly with abductees, but the Rh negative blood factors. Had you explored that at all?
I've heard about it, but I haven't really. I never think to ask that question or anything.
Sure,
but that is definitely an interesting little anomaly.
Yeah, and I don't know because I've talked to people that claim they have positive blood factors, and you know, it's certainly not exclusive, but it does seem to be maybe more prevalent than the Rh negative factors. But who knows? I was just curious because that always comes to mind. It's like, well, what kind of blood do you have?
Right.
Probably is a creepy question all by itself, but contextually, maybe it makes sense.
Right.
So, how about hauntings? Did you get a lot of those stories?
Yeah. We've got one whole chapter that is a brother and sister. One is a paramedic and one is a police officer. And they both relocated to North Carolina at different points in the same region, though. And they both have all kinds of cool ghost and haunting stories around their jobs, and even tracing back to where they came from, but it seems to have sort of followed them, or they have some openness to it that allows them to see it in different places. But they both wanted their story anonymized because, you know, if you're driving an ambulance or a police car, you don't want your boss being like, "What is this about you seeing things?" You know?
Yeah. Here's a little cup. So. Go do the next step. Yeah, you're right. And that's the other side of it, of course, is that there's still, you know, I suppose maybe the believers are still probably in the minority, or especially the experiencers. I don't think this stuff is necessarily as rare as a lot of people think, but I don't think it's everybody either. That at least that's aware of it, because in my experience, and I guess this is a big theory on my part, but I think everybody probably has encountered some of this unknown stuff at some point. But I think we have an exceptional ability to filter it out of our experience and explain it away and stuff. But do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think there's definitely something there that if you're a skeptic, or like, it takes a lot to overcome that skepticism. Either, like in my case, it just sort of was chipped away at by various factors, or you have something undeniable that is right there in your face. But I think once that happens, there's no going back. You know, it's you know, you hear, especially in the UFO community, you hear this talk of disclosure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these people have already had disclosure.
Right.
You know, to them, there's not a question. It's a real thing, and they have no doubt. And so whether some government official says that yes, it's real, doesn't mean much to them. So, but at the same time, the people that are hardcore skeptics or even on the fence, that would be meaningful. So
sure,
it's not that it doesn't have value, but yeah, there's a lot that we would love answers to. I don't know when we'll get them or if we'll get them, but
yeah, that's an interesting point and a very well made point. I think the same way, because I don't think we probably need disclosure like maybe we would have at one point in time, because I think we've been getting little soft disclosures here and there with like the Tic Tacs and the acknowledgement that we don't know what this is, but there it is. And this is real video. Right. And so it's all right there, really. That's about as much of an admission as I think we're probably ever going to get. And you're right. The experiencers don't need the disclosure, but what I think would be good would be if they didn't get ridiculed for it. You know, I think that, you know, to the non-believers, the experiencers are a bunch of kooks. You know, they're just kind of lost the plot and they're just bumbling around making up stories. But, you know, to the experiencers, it's like, this is something I have to live with, and it's a usually pretty tormented kind of experiences for the people. Did you find that those people that had the extraterrestrial contact or extra dimensional, whatever they are, that they were dealing with trauma as a result?
In a lot of cases, yeah. So there's a trauma through line that sometimes people who have experienced trauma are more open to these things, it seems like. And then there's the flip side where if they're open about what happened to them, they are traumatized by people's reactions being so negative. And it can go different. Like, you know, if you're around certain types of religious beliefs or cultures, you're going to get one type of stigma. Oh, that's demons. And if you're around a different type of person, they're going to tell you that the UFO thing is just a psyop, or it's you know, you must have been on drugs, or you need psychological help. Like, there's all these stigmas, and I feel like some of them are definitely manufactured stigmas. If you go to other countries and other cultures, they may not have the same stigmas around some of these topics. Reincarnation is widely held belief in a lot of cultures, not ours, but you know, so there's definitely all these factors. And I do think that the stigma is starting to lift. Like, we're talking about this, and a lot of other people are talking about these topics now that maybe before we would have been making little jokes and playing the X-Files music and putting our tinfoil hats on or whatever. And now we can just talk about it like normal humans and not have to couch anything. But
yeah. You know, that's a great point, and I'm glad you made it, about cultures and about the varying levels of acceptance based upon culture, and I've always been fascinated by that. I know a lot of Asian and Hispanic cultures are very, very much acknowledging of the fact that these things do exist, and like, I can't tell you how many stories I've covered through the years on my live streams of Hispanic cultures. Somebody saw this, you know, this creature in the woods and near their farm, and they will send out military and they will send out police and they will look. Now, if you made that same claim in the U.S., you'd get, you know, hung up on probably from the emergency services. It'd be like, don't waste our time, you kook. You know, so it is pretty incredible the contrast between culture and how much they are willing to invest in these claims. But I find it refreshing, really, that these other cultures do acknowledge this, because I think experiencers are in an incredibly uncomfortable place, because most often they feel so incredibly isolated and alone. I mean, and I've said this many times on the show, but like, if your car breaks down, You can tell anybody you know about it, and they'll have a point of reference, and they can understand and associate with what you're talking about. But if you tell somebody, I saw Bigfoot, it's like, okay,
Right.
there's no meeting in the middle on that for most people. They're like, okay, well, listen, I got to get home. I mean,
Right.
it's a huge contrast. So,
And it's interesting when you do talk to people who are skeptical. I've heard this from a number of people that I've talked to. If they bring it up with someone who's not a skeptic, or who is a skeptic and not sort of on the same page, that person gets uncomfortable.
Yes.
With the topic, and they're looking for the exit ramp, whether it's changing the subject or finding a way to dismiss it, or like they're just like, how do I get out of this? This is so uncomfortable. And I hope that things like your show, my book, and these other forums where people can talk about these things can whittle away at that stigma a little bit and make it a little more socially acceptable in common circles to talk about these things.
I think you're right, and I think that it is definitely the most open probably that we've been in the modern era, is now because of books like yours and because of shows and people having the discussions, the TV, you turn on any night on cable, you'll find about 5 ghost shows or something, or Bigfoot shows or any number of things. So I am encouraged by that, and I think it's certainly become much more mainstream, and that'll help. But yeah, it's got to be tough. Now, as you're reaching out, did people reach out to you through some form of you putting word out there you're looking for experiences, and they volunteered themselves, or did you approach people that you may have heard had experiences? How did the formula work for you?
It was all of the above, kind of.
Okay.
I put word out among my friend group, and social media and things, that I was looking for people with stories. And there were some people who just have those connections. Like if they are a big fan of ghost hunting shows or excursions or whatever, they're going to know the people that can, or maybe they're involved with a near-death research group or something. And then other times I would reach out to people that I would find, that maybe posted a video talking about their experience on TikTok or something, or maybe on Reddit, there would be a discussion and I'd say, hey, this was really interesting. Do you mind if I talk to you a little more about it? And so there were a lot of different ways. One person in the book is someone who's in my neighborhood who found out I was writing a book and said, I want to talk to you about what happened when my son died. And, another person was in Japan, and we had to conduct the interview over email with, using translation because he didn't speak English. I don't speak Japanese, but we found a way to make it work. So there's because I didn't have any established name or presence or anything. I was just any way I could find interesting people with interesting stories. I was happy to go down those paths. And now with the book out, I'm starting to get a little bit more people coming to me, but mostly I'm still reaching out. So if anybody listening, wants to talk about their story with me, I'm happy to talk to you. Reach out to me. But yeah, it's not every story that I hear is going to make it in the book.
Sure.
There's some stories that are more like background, trying to understand these topics and how they might be interrelated. But yeah, I'm always happy to talk to people about these things, as are you, I see.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it because, I think we're all on a journey of trying to understand. I'm curious, though, now that you've been going down these rabbit holes, and this is a personal curiosity because I certainly experience it in my own, experience it in my own experience. Maybe not the best language, but you know what I mean? I've experienced probably an acceleration of paranormal events just because I'm constantly having the discussions. And I think that perhaps there's some form of energetic attraction to some of this stuff. Have you found any experiences of your own since diving down these rabbit holes?
Yeah, not a ton, but I did have some things that happened before I started this journey that I looked back on and said, boy, that's one hell of a synchronicity. Like the odds of that seem a little long, but at the time I didn't have time to even think about it because I was going through my own little crisis. But things sort of happened in my favor in really coincidental ways. But since then, I think I haven't had a lot of experiences, but I have had some really intriguing ones where I was hanging around with other people who do have these experiences, and I had some with them, mostly to do with lights in the sky that were not behaving like normal human activities.
Right.
There was one really cool one that was a blinking light that went upward in a spiral, and we caught it on camera.
Ooh.
No idea what it was, but it was really really cool. And what we found was interesting. There were probably, I don't know, maybe 10 of us out there that witnessed it. We were seeing a lot of like orbs and things, but what was most interesting to me about it was the next day we were telling some other people who had missed it, and we discovered after the fact that we had seen different colors. So I saw it as red, someone else saw it as like a blue-green color, someone else saw it as white. So and you hear that sometimes, right? Where two witnesses don't see exactly the same thing. And what does that mean? I don't know. I have no idea, but
that is an interesting phenomenon, and it comes up a lot. There can be, situations where three people are together, doing some kind of haunted investigation, and two of those people will hear a disembodied scream, just loud and shrill and terrifying, and a third person won't hear anything at all. And it's like, well, how does that work? But I guess it maybe. We of course filter our experiences, and so I've always considered that maybe the sounds aren't as audible physically as they are some mental projections. But in any case,
right.
Yeah, those are strange things.
And there seems to be a lot of that sort of, I'll just call it like mind to mind type connection, where it's inside, it's coming from somewhere and projecting into your mind. And this is all just, my own pet theory, but it does seem like that could explain why some people see or hear things and other people don't. Or sometimes you get that classic situation where two people are saying, look out the window. And one person's like, no, I'm fine. They don't want to look, they're not.
Yeah, sure. I like
and the next day they're like, why didn't I look?
Yeah. Yeah. I think people will defend their paradigm fiercely, though. It's like, this is my world.
Yeah.
This is the place I know. Don't wreck it.
Yeah.
So, and you would reference people getting in touch with deceased loved ones and stuff. I wanted to revisit that because that's something that I've experienced as well, of loved ones coming to visit me. But what manner have people experienced that you've encountered in your interviews?
So the one that really stands out in that regard is a man named Devin, who lives in my neighborhood. He was somebody I referenced earlier. He had an adult son who died in a work accident, and he heard him cry out, even though they were 30 miles apart or something, right at that moment. And the son who passed had his own son. So this was Devin's grandson, who suddenly he had to, solve this problem of like, am I raising this grandson? I'm pretty old. I'm not in the best health. Is there someone else who can take care of this child? And there were some legal things because of the work-related accident. And all through the months after the death, he would get these various, it came in the form of dreams. It came in the form of physical sensations. So one of the things that happened right after his son died, he went to the, I guess the morgue, to say goodbye. And it was just, when he's telling me the story, your heart just breaks because it's his son. And he because of the accident, they kept the body covered up, but he asked if they could uncover his foot, and he just rubbed his foot to kind of connect with his son and say goodbye. And then from that point on, whenever something was going on, he would sometimes get this foot rubbing sensation. And he said it wasn't like somebody brushing up against your foot. It wasn't like an insect. It was like somebody massaging your foot. And through the whole process, there were some synchronicities with the some of the legal battles where he would stumble onto paperwork that was really important for the case, or a paperwork that normally would take 6 weeks took 12 hours to come through. And all these little signs that basically pointed him in the direction of how to take care of the grandchild, what his son would have wanted. And he felt like he was getting direction to some extent, or maybe not direction, but like confirmation that he was on the right path. So that was it was a very bittersweet story,
Yeah. I mean, of course, it's a horrible thing to lose someone you love, but then to be forced to, enter the arena to battle for that what you care for. Just out of curiosity, did he end up raising that child?
No, he another basically the uncle and his wife ended up taking the child, and that seems to be working really well. So
good. I'm glad, because
yeah,
I think that's got to be the most horrid nightmare possible, is just thinking that some child has to not grow up with his father, and how hard that would be. But yeah, that's incredible. Right. And dreams are something that's been coming up a lot for me. I was telling you before we started recording, but that's the way that I've met with my deceased loved ones, is they appear in dreams, and they're incredibly lucid. They're incredibly vivid and powerful, almost more than sitting here talking to you. It's just that real. And I'm amazed by that, because I think in our Western culture, we've kind of just discard dreams. But I think that's a medium of a very powerful medium of potential spiritual contact. Would you agree?
Yeah, it does seem to come up a lot. And I mean, it's not like I don't have vivid dreams myself.
Yeah.
And my dreams usually don't make a whole lot of sense. They're very, how some people have these dreams and you try to explain it, and just suddenly one thing is another thing. That's my experience with it. But I talk to so many people that, they have, these dreams that feel more real than reality does sometimes. That I've heard that phrase before, or they're so specific, or so, here's a good one. There was a woman named Jasmine who she lived in Toronto, and she kept having these dreams, and she would journal every night. She'd have these dreams, and she would draw or write in her journal. And she had this really vivid dream about bodies in giant pots, like giant flower pots. And she was like, I don't know what, she just journaled it, drew little doodles of it. And then, maybe a couple months later, news breaks about a serial killer in Toronto who was a landscaper, and he would dispose of the bodies by putting them in these giant landscaping pots and then put trees in the pots.
Oh my God. Oh.
Yeah. And so she gets confirmation that the dream was like this precognitive thing, but there was nothing to do about it. It was more just sort of, I guess she said in her view, it was sort of like this message of like, yes, what you see in your dreams, you should pay attention to, because there's real information here. This one wasn't actionable, but just pay attention. So I think there's definitely some part of the dream world for some people that is significant. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the experiences seem very dreamlike too, where things shift and don't quite line up the way that reality always does. But
yeah, I think there's a lot to that. And I think maybe reality is pretty subjective, honestly, but it's pretty peculiar. Yeah. So you said you're going to be working on a second book. Yeah.
Yeah. It basically, another of the same format. So interviewing people and telling their stories. And I try to, I do want to say I mentioned before that I do anonymize details, but I try to keep it as true to the original story, to the experience as I can. Yeah. Like I'm trying to faithfully tell this story. One thing I decided early on was that I was not going to try and do proof or evidence. Yeah. Because sometimes that feels like it dilutes the story. When you're looking at a grainy, blurry photo that maybe looks like something, maybe doesn't, or, trying to track down somebody's employment or phone records or whatever, like that, just there's space for that. And there's people that do that, but yeah. I just want to hear from the person, what was your experience and how did it affect you? And so I decided that part of it is getting set aside, and I'm going to do the same thing in the second book. I'm going to keep talking to people and trying to get to the root of what happened to them. And then what a lot of times it seems like after you have these experiences, your life isn't the same anymore. Yes. It shifts something.
Yep.
And often for the better, even though the trauma sometimes comes with it.
Yeah.
In the long run, it seems like it has a net positive effect for a lot of people.
That's a great point. I think that's probably true. Even with things like abductions, which most times people feel incredibly violated and disempowered and objectified and subjugated, whatever words you want to throw at it. But I think that there does oftentimes come a point where people realize there's a bigger message involved in that, and maybe that the experience was important to help them share that bigger message. And I'm really whitewashing all of them into one, basic synopsis, but there does seem to be a higher purpose for all of this in a great regard, good, because a lot of people discard the paranormal and the supernatural and stuff as just whatever, things went sideways, things were weird there, but now it's back to normal. But I think that this stuff, and I've said it for years, but I think it's the breadcrumbs of helping us understand that the reality we live in isn't concrete and rigid, it's fluid. And there's things we don't understand about it, but it's being demonstrated for us in these events. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, not to say that there aren't experiences that are negative and unpleasant, and even sometimes people don't come out of it better off. But on the whole, it does seem like the pattern with a lot of people I talk to is that, for whatever reason, there is something. Maybe like you said, it's the breadcrumbs that lead individuals and us collectively toward something bigger, something better. That's I like that framing.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But I think what you're doing is incredibly important, and I'm excited to see these prosper for you, because I think, like we were talking before we recorded, there was a time when you couldn't really talk at all about this, but there seems to be so much more accessibility and a lot more platforms where people can have these discussions, and I'm thrilled that you are doing this, and with integrity too. I mean, I love what you're doing with the stories, in that you're holding true, you're reviewing them with the experiencers, you're letting them weigh in on the process. You're not just taking it and going, oh, thanks for contributing, now it's mine, and I'm going to recreate it into something else. Like the cocaine bear. It's based on a true story, but the true story versus the Hollywood movie are very, very independently different. They're not even the same story. Yeah. The only truth is that a bear found cocaine and ate some and then went 100 feet and died. The movie, it went on a spree. Right. Yeah. So I really love that you're holding true to the experiences of these people in an honest way with integrity. My hat's off to you. You're doing it right, brother.
Yeah. And that was one reason why I ended up going the self-publishing route, because I didn't want anything to get twisted along the way. Yeah. Not to say that a traditional publisher would have done anything like that, but you don't know. It goes out of your hands to some extent when you go that route. And so I really felt strongly that I wanted to, it was like a collaboration between me and the people I was talking to. Mm-hmm. I wasn't going to bring in anybody else that thought they knew better how this should go. it seems to be working out okay. People are giving me positive feedback on the book, so I'm going to keep going. But yeah, I really did want to. That, in fact, back at the beginning, I talked about my mentor, Robin Lassiter, and I asked her, how, if she had any advice for me, and she basically did say, like, do it as an act of service to the experiencers. That's what they need right now. And that was really valuable to me to take that mindset and internalize it. So.
No, I think that's brilliant. And I'm glad she gave you that advice. I'm glad you took it to heart and you've created something wonderful. Can you take a few minutes and let people know, again, where to find your book, where to stay in touch with you, and if they have experiences, how to get in contact with you? Yeah,
absolutely. So the book is available online at any booksellers. All the places fine books are sold, as they say. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the. In fact, you can go to most independent bookstores. They won't have it on the shelf, but if you ask them, they'll be able to look it up in the catalog and order it for you if you want. Or you can just buy directly from me if you want, like a signed copy or something. My website, strangelightbook.com. I've also got ways to contact me there if you want to reach out and share your story or give me feedback on what you read or anything like that. So yeah, that's the best way to get in touch with me. I do also try to promote the book a bit and make silly videos on social media. So you can find me on various social media platforms. Pick your favorite, and you'll probably see the same content everywhere because I'm recycling it. But
that's awesome. Well, Edson, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, brother. And by all means, please come back and update us and fill in more blanks. If there's things we didn't cover, we'd love to talk with you again.
Yeah, that would be great. Oh, I should mention, there will be an audiobook of this. It's in the works. I've got a narrator working on it. Don't know exactly when that's going to come out, but hopefully in the next few months sometime.
Outstanding. Well, we'll look forward to that too then. Thank you for being here, brother. It's been a great time.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, everybody, that's going to wrap it up for us today. So hope you guys enjoyed the show, and thank you again so much for all your love and support. And remember, if you want to follow the Paranormal Portal, probably the easiest way is to head over to paranormalportal.net. And that's the homepage for the Paranormal Portal. And you'll find links to all of our different social media and sites and information about the shows, including our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/paranormalportal. Or just look for Paranormal Portal on Google or whatever search engine, and you'll find links to our social media such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So we're kind of all over the place, and we're spreading as well as we can. But anyway, thank you so much for the love and support. You all take care, and remember, we love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Until next time.